All right, welcome back to another episode of Copper Whiff, and we're bringing you another Mandalorian review. This time with producer Doodle on deck.
Hey.
Wooch, our boy, couldn't make it. Again, he's got business to attend to on the other side of the galaxy, out in a little foreign place called Geelong.
Far away?
Yeah, it's pretty fucking far,
long
far
time
away.
ago, I heard as well.
Yeah. All right, so episode 6. What did you say it was? The tragedy.
The tragedy.
Yes. So already starting off, it's hard. You're calling it the tragedy, so we already know that something's going to go
It's
wrong.
in the title.
And we're probably thinking, something to do with Baby Yoda. Line us up, producer Doodle. Where are we starting?
All right. So this episode starts out the same way you'd expect any great Mandalorian episode to start out, right? They're coming back. They're in the ship from the last episode. Of course, if you hadn't seen that, sorry, spoilers again, but you had Ahsoka in that episode, and it ended with her saying that you want to take Grogu, or the child,
Baby Yoda.
to a planet called Typhon?
Typhon,
That's right. To some ancient ruins of a Jedi temple, right? To pretty much meditate and maybe become connected with the Jedi. So we're kind of on the edge of our seats going, is this going to be another time where we get another filler episode between that happens? Because the same thing happened when Bo-Katan mentioned about Ahsoka. And we're sitting here kind of going, are we going to get another filler episode? Or are we going to get straight to the point? We're getting to the kind of the meat and potatoes
of the crux of the show right now, huh?
Climax of the season. So
episode 6, there's no more time for filler. So it seems, as you said, that now that we're heading to this planet Typhon, shit's about to get real. And as soon as you read the tragedy as well,
gets you a little bit scared.
Yeah, you're pretty nervous for old little Grogu there. So they start off in space. Obviously, it's sort of like that nice panning shot as always with the Star Wars. Like it'll be the stars, and then you sort of pan down the ship. The Razor Crest enters the frame, and you got Mando and Grogu bonding a little further. It's nice that they've done this as well. Like this season specifically has really shown the bond between these two, and especially with Ahsoka being able to communicate with him through the Force, she notices that there is a really strong bond between him and Grogu.
It's an awesome thing because he's kind of meant to be that hardened kind of veteran, that war veteran who's, doing
it for the paycheck.
Yeah, but he's in his craft and, doesn't have that attachment. That's meant to be like the whole code, from what I can tell anyway. So it's cool to kind of crack through that armor and actually see that he's, starting to care about
that
this.
Uncrackable armor.
The uncrackable armor, some could say.
That is kind of like, as you said, metaphorically, like the armor that he's wearing is impenetrable. But the little baby is the one thing that is able to crack through that hardened shell that is the Mando and really get to the juicy, soft heart.
So, all right, we'll go through the crux of the episode, right? The plot of the episode. So they do, which is what we were hoping for. They end up landing on the planet, or should we say flying from the ship.
Yeah, they have a strange cut in this scene specifically where he says we can't land the ship on the on this rocky dune where they're going to end up. So they have a shot where he's in the ship. He says, all right, we're going to have to fly up there, but they don't actually have the ship landing. It just has Mando and Grogu just kind of jetting off with the jetpack.
It's kind of a cool scene. It's kind of cool, but at the same time, it's kind of like one of those wins with things. Even with the last episode where they had the frame with Ahsoka kind of having a lightsaber against the whatever her name was. It was the Magistrate.
I kept calling her the Empress,
anyway,
but whatever she is.
The Magistrate, right? They kind of just changed the scene. You're like, oh, okay, so that's what's happening. Really, it was, I got to say, and we are going to have a few gripes of this episode, but one of the things I did like, they changed it up and they went to film on location. Yeah. And it did look pretty cool, especially from when they had those nice aerial shots of this like
kind of like a desert. It's not a desert like full sand,
has
but
a lot
it
of
is kind
shrubbery.
of like a kind of a barren, dried out desert landscape with a lot of
very earthy planet though, wasn't it?
Yeah. Didn't seem like a planet that was we've come from a lot of planets throughout this, especially this season, of just very different locations, and this one feels a lot. Yeah, it feels like Earth.
Most like Earth. Let's just be honest. This is probably the least episode that's least felt like a Star Wars
environment
area,
or a new environment. It does feel very earthy.
And this is where the whole of the episode does take place on this planet. So this is why it takes precedence in this. So
they have this interesting sequence where Mando places Grogu on this in the center of this rock formation, and he's sort of saying where you go. Like, is there a button? Like, how do I activate it? Like, what's supposed to happen? Is something going to happen?
Go web. Up and away web.
Go gadget fucking Grogu on this fucking...
What are we doing?
On this rock.
Go gadget Grogu, dude.
Yeah, on this rock, right? Go do the magic force hand thing, right?
It was cool.
So eventually he sees a ship approaching out of the atmosphere.
This is where it's kind of like things start getting a little bit coincidental in a very good way, right?
Yeah.
I mean, so he sees the ship. They're in, like, as we said, a barren kind of a place where there's not really there's no one around. So you got nothing to worry about. As soon as he starts seeing a ship coming in, which is obviously a possible threat to them. Suddenly, Grogu's figured out how to channel his force
to activate this force ability. So this is another thing that I need to maybe go back and do some homework on. Is that when Grogu activates this stone, he places his hand on it and becomes into this kind of like Zen, sleepy, sort of like focused.
Days.
He has this giant blue energy stream floating up into the sky. I've never seen that before. Where, like, normally when you have the Force throughout all of the Star Wars that I've seen or read or anything like that, you don't see the Force, right? It's felt like it's an invisible connection to this outer worldly power. You don't see an energy, like you don't see a blue energy field like that. It looks like he has like a deflector shield around him. I'm like, what is this?
I don't mind it. They've changed a lot of things, and, like, I mean, I don't want to go into it, and we're not going to. But things like force healing was never a thing.
They did
not
do
too
a lot
long
of
ago.
Bullshit with the Force in these later episodes. I still think that this is kind of staying true to it. Mostly, it's just I've never seen visible Force energy before, other than like Force lightning.
I didn't mind the way it looked, though. We'll move past that. I didn't mind it. Yeah. So, of course, now if you see this ship, I knew straight away. Most of the people who should be watching this who love Star Wars are going to know what the ship is, right? It's Boba Fett. Okay, we finally get it from, like, there was teased from the start of the season, episode 1, that with the sheriff of the town obviously having that armor. Mando finally gets that armor back. You know, we're waiting for Boba Fett. There's like that big thing at the end of the first episode. Here we go. Boba Fett's here.
He comes jetting in on, I think it's Slave One, I believe.
That's the name of his ship. True.
So 99 times out of 100, they're after the kid, or it's like some bounty hunter's coming to fuck with him. So he's going down, getting ready for battle.
I just had a thought. You know what he didn't do? And you might be happy with this. He didn't use that little telescope.
Yeah, that little bullshit.
Watch last week's review, understand what we're talking about.
Don't like that.
Okay. Anyway.
And it also kind of looks like he had a zoom in his helmet as well.
When he, you
know what? Like he zoomed in his helmet.
You might be right. I think that he did.
So he sees that there's a shady character leaving this ship, getting ready to approach him. But what he doesn't realize is that once he confronts Boba, the second that they go to sort of lock horns, I guess, and meet on this hill.
Yeah, it's like in the indentation of the hill.
Yeah, on this hillside as he's walking down. Bullets fire across the center. So obviously he knows, like, you can't cross this point because bullets are coming from somewhere. So he stops, and then Boba confronts him and says, like, hey, Mando, I've been fucking tracking you down. Like,
I want my armor.
Yeah, I want my armor.
Yeah, right. Which we're all just like, we all theorize what's going to happen, right? We know Boba Fett's going to be in it. He was casted, right? Which also the return of
Timothy Morrison. That guy.
That's why I've got him on the couch.
So the actor who played Django, obviously he's not the original Boba Fett actor. I believe that guy's well off into his 70s.
They did do a voiceover, didn't they? When they did like the remastered?
Remastered. So they have Timothy Morrison, who played Django Fett in Attack of the Clones, has reprised the role of Boba, seeing that Boba was explained in that movie to be a clone that he kept as a son. So he is now playing his own son technically in the show, which is a really great thing that they've done.
It's cool. It's awesome.
And you can see that obviously he survived the Sarlacc pit, which is the last time we know that the character had left off, and all of his hair and everything.
Bit of mystery about it still, isn't there?
All melted. I have a problem with this with his reveal. Obviously, he peels his hood back and says, like, Mando, I've been tracking you down. I want to make a deal with you here, and let's lower our weapons. Let's talk this out like men. He has prosthetics, right? It looks like he has all these sort of scarring and prosthetics over his face, and in the lighting is pretty bad in this whole episode because it's the daylight. It does kind of take away a lot of the
Yeah,
No,
it's just
it is strange.
well, we're talking about Star Wars universe here, right? And
a lot
so
of the time you see these characters, they're in like Imperial hallways, they're on ships, they're on in these nicely lit.
They got a bit of mist, a bit of fog in there.
Yeah, and like, the armor looks nice and shiny, and they look presentable. You see, you see in broad daylight that someone who's wearing prosthetic scarring and all this stuff that's over his skin, it's noticeable. It's not the best. Okay.
All right. So we got to move on with it. So they have a bit of a standoff. Of course, now you have Mando saying, "Well, what's gonna stop me right now from pretty much putting not a bullet in you, but a blaster, right? Yeah. What are you here for?" Obviously, he says Boba wants his armor. He says, "Well, are you actually a Mandalorian?" Which he says, "No." What's the exact line? It was the same as his father's, pretty much.
He
right?
repeats another line that was
just cool,
almost the same as from Jango Fett. He says that I'm just a simple man trying to make his way through the galaxy, whereas on a scale, Jango says through the universe. Yeah, so I'm just a simple man trying to make his way across the universe, which obviously galaxy universe is a lot bigger.
True. So
it's and then he says. What does he say? It's something.
Yeah, well, obviously, next up he says, well, "What's going to stop me? You're not a Mandalorian, right? You ain't Mandalorian. I'm not giving you the armor. I'm not giving your armor back.
It's against the code."
So he says, Mando obviously says, "What's going to stop me from striking you down right now?" He says, "Because I have a sharpshooter." Right? Yeah. In which Mando obviously says, "Well, it's not really going to do anything. By the time that I'm still gonna. By
the time I see that bullet come from that gun, I'm gonna probably kill you and kill her since I'm wearing the best gun."
But of course, Boba is a fucking legend, and already has the sharpshooter on Grogu. Which, by the way, I don't think, and we realize later in the episode that laser would actually penetrate through the force
field.
Anyway, Mando doesn't know that. Cool, whatever. And then we also realize that it's actually a retrieval in the role. Fennec.
Her name is Fennec, I believe. So I think she was from
episode 6 or something like that in the first season.
Not episode 6, was it?
I'm not sure. The one in the desert, and we actually saw at the end of that episode that after her and Mando team up, we saw in that episode that you had...
Well, she was left for dead in that...
Exactly. And you had an ominous figure pull her body and something happened there, and we all thought maybe that's Boba, but here we go.
She also reveals too that he saved her and put a whole... mechanical chunk in her midsection now. So,
Anakin's arm, and
it's reminiscent of Luke Skywalker's hand in at the end of Empire Strikes Back after he's got like a replacement hand put on.
Seeing
it looks
like all the little ligaments coming up and stuff.
Machinery and stuff moving inside.
I like that. I thought that looked sick as well.
So Boba's deal is that like we will exchange basically. Like I want to have my armor returned to me, and in exchange for that, we will see to it that the baby or Grogu comes to no harm, which is very specific in the way that he says it. So, their truce basically at the time is that like, I will lower my weapons and I will call down, not Krennic. What's their name again?
Fennec. Very close.
Fennec. I'll tell Fennec to stand down. You take your jetpack off. Now, this is where...
a little weird, right?
Yeah, it gets rough.
If you're going to have a weapon, pointed at someone, and you're going to go, let's all calm down here. Let's all put my weapon and your jetpack down.
Yeah.
So it's a bit weird, right? And look, things ensue from here. We'll just cut to it, right? Picks up. Stormtroopers start storming down as they do.
Yeah, so we see that, another ship is now approaching down, and it is an Imperial ship, and it lands... basically right next to the Razor Crest, if I'm not mistaken.
Right next to it.
And then they, it's weird that they
infiltrate, I suppose.
They land on the bottom of the hill.
Kind of odd,
and so about 50 stormtroopers all come storming up this hill. Very similar with the shot. The way that they have this shot specifically is kind of like Saving Private Ryan, the same way that you have the ships pulling
Comes
up
from
onto
the rear behind, like you're one of them in a way.
Yeah, from the beaches of Normandy. Cool. So like the door kicks down and like you see the cameraman kind of run out behind these stormtroopers, and they're all just getting lit up as like Mando, Boba, and Fennec start picking them off like flies.
Now there's a couple weird things here, and I have a gripe, especially with, as we just said, putting down his jetpack, right?
He forgets
because he just walks off from this point. So not only did he not really have to put it down, because that didn't really make too much sense to me anyway. Maybe it did. Let us know in the comments. But now he's just walked off to try to go see Grogu and make sure that he's protected. and he didn't do it with a jetpack, which would have got him there
so he's
faster.
run all
right?
the way up at this hill.
And that really is like what lets him down in the rest of the episode, that he does not have a jetpack. And that just seems really like a thin excuse to me. I don't want to say lazy writing; it seems a bit harsh, but I'm not really sure what.
It's a very plot device.
Yeah,
kind of
I just don't know.
There, you put down the one thing that allows you to transport a lot quicker. I'll come back. We'll circle around to that. Why that's dumb. So like, excuse me.
So about these stormtroopers, the way it looked, huh?
Yeah. So Fennec and Boba. Fennec's using her long-range rifle to start picking these stormtroopers off up the hill, and Boba is now engaging with them in hand-to-hand combat using, which is really cool. He has two weapons that he's now using because he hasn't got his armor. He has a cycler rifle, which is one of those Tusken Raider long-range sniper rifle guns that are about 6 feet long.
Cool. I haven't really seen him use it yet. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, yeah, and then he has that, and then he has the what do you say, taffy stick or something?
Yeah, gaffy stick.
Gaffy stick. So he has a gaffy stick, right? So it's another Tusken weapon. It's kind of like a long spear on one end, like a pointed spear on one end, and then it has this kind of like hooped, like
what do you call that? Almost like, what do you call it from like the cowboys' boots? Like it's like a shoehorn almost on the end there, with like a rounded ball and a spike on the end of that. Yeah, it's cool. It's cool.
What I sort of assumed why they gave him this weapon, other than to tie in the fact that potentially the Tusken Sand people did rescue him from the Sarlacc pit, is that Timaweda Morrison is Maori traditionally. So the Maori chieftains of their tribes would have, like, they would be probably the most skilled warrior, I guess, of their tribes, and they would use these weapons called a taiaha, which is like a wooden spear, obviously. Basically a wooden spear. Yeah. Much of a muchness there.
Yeah,
it's kind of like
slightly different.
It's slightly modified wooden spear, and they use this as their primary weapon. And you could see that.
That's sick. That's sick.
Boba was utilizing some of the techniques that they use wielding this weapon, and just tuning through these stormtroopers too. It was just epic.
Puts depth to it, doesn't it?
Gives it depth.
Yeah,
it gives
I like
depth to the culture of culturally speaking, and it also gives Boba, makes him a bit more of a badass. He's not just some guy who shoots like everyone else. Like he is very skilled hand-to-hand combatant as well.
So he's piecing up these. I mean, who doesn't piece up a stormtrooper? We know this, but he's piecing them up.
So he's smashing through their armor.
It was actually really cool. You actually get to see their armor break,
like explode off.
Because you don't really get. I mean, most of the time you don't really get to see stormtroopers or anyone really get hit with solid objects, right? It's either a blaster with like a laser kind of gun, really, or it's going to be a lightsaber or something, right? So you don't really get to see. It's kind of odd to see, and that kind of brings me to how I kind of felt about the way it was shot. And I can't really put my finger on exactly what it is. I don't know if it's because there's so much on the ground or they've gone to a location recording, but I just felt like it looked, I don't know. I don't want to say it. I can't say cheap. It's definitely not cheap. It just looked out of place. The stormtroopers being in that natural light on like a very earthy looking hill fighting just looked like a couple of guys.
Day, sun's glaring off
like
of them.
You, me, and Wooch just got in some stormtroopers and it was just, outfits and just had a bit of fun.
I'm going to have to say it. It looks very fan film-esque, right? It looks like a fan movie that you can find on YouTube where like a lot of cosplayers are running around in stormtrooper armor in the middle of the day because obviously they couldn't afford, a proper Star Wars set.
God bless you, cosplayers.
Yeah, the cosplayers, man.
Yeah.
Like for years and years and years. It did feel like that. It was a huge difference between watching the way that this episode is filmed specifically compared to the last episode in
so different.
Yeah. The last episode, the way it's kind of very artsy, you want to say it?
Designed. Like they designed each shot in that episode.
Every single panel was painted like a beautiful comic book almost frame by frame setting. Very like almost like the way that Zack Snyder directs his movies. Like you see like 300, like there's these shots of these environments. You're like, it doesn't look like they're on location. It looks like they're on a set, but like he's trying to make it stand out to you like a comic book panel.
And they could manipulate everything. And it felt
like an art piece.
I could almost say that last episode felt the most like Star Wars in any episode. I'm not saying it does. I'd have to look back on it. You could almost say that. And then I'd say this one felt the least like a Star Wars universe in this episode. To kind of contrast that, it was just jarring to see. But at the same time, a lot of people probably loved it. So, that's just my opinion on it.
And then so we have the next sequence as all the stormtroopers start piling up on this hill. They're all getting picked off, but they are growing in numbers. They are able to set up and man one of these like giant turrets.
Yeah.
I can't think. I think they've come out before. I think earlier in season 1.
I think it was at the end of season 1.
Season 1,
when they had
and
that
I think we've
standoff in
seen
the
it
bar.
in Rogue One too, I believe.
Yep.
Excuse. And then they have so they have a stormtrooper start like hacking away at Fennec up on this big hill. So she's running in. It's a cool shot of her like running down this hill.
It's
They
awesome.
have mortar missiles come flying up, like
sick,
the one where they place it into the thing and it shoots
Yeah,
up.
that's right. That was sick. Yeah.
And so she gets pinned behind this giant rock, like a big boulder, like a big rounded boulder. And so she's getting like hammered by all these weapons and stuff. And one of those mortar missiles knocks this kind of rock loose, I guess you would say. It hits the bottom of the rock.
We all know what we're thinking when it started rolling down. Griff,
so what I was thinking was, how the fuck does she kick this like 50-ton boulder
also that.
just because it's been loosened by some bombs, as if like it's now just hanging on by a fucking thread?
We've all been at the gym and we've all kind of done a little bit of leg day, right? We're feeling pretty good.
So she kicks this giant 50-foot by 50-foot boulder down this hill. It's perfectly round too.
Yeah.
And it is rolling down the hill. Look, Raiders of the Lost Ark,
yeah, right?
They're making a reference to another George Lucas movie.
I'm being way too picky, but in just thinking about it right now, it doesn't stray from its course. Right?
It just looks so out of place.
We're talking, it doesn't go left or right. It goes straight down.
Perfect, like rolls down.
So it goes straight into the turret, right? It destroys everything that there was yet. Which is, it's still a really cool, it's a really cool scene, right?
They did it for fan service more so for the actual plot. It's just another way to crush some stormtroopers.
So as this is happening,
we've got two things happening at the same thing. Like, so Boba has time to dart off and go missing, we'll say, after he's killed a few stormtroopers. He takes out the leader too before that as well. Like the guy with the orange panel on his, he's giving the orders, who's obviously shit. His job too. He's telling like, get up there. And then like the second he points for one of the stormtroopers to, go and make an attack plan, he just gets shot. So he's like, cool. Yeah. And so, so Boba just kills this fucking guy as well, just dismantles him. And then he disappears and we return back to Mando up on the hill trying to break through this force field that is surrounding Grogu, which is another thing that is kind of bothersome. He tries to push through this thing 3 times. 3 times we counted. You think you would learn your lesson after the first time, right? So he's walking up, he's trying to
also he was knocked out too this whole time, which I can't help but feel was once again a coincidental kind of plot device that they couldn't have him down there at this point in time because this was a kick-ass scene for Boba and Fennec. Yeah. So he's up there knocked out. You know what I mean? I don't know. I actually really enjoyed this episode as well, so we'll talk about that at the end. But just as we're going along, just doesn't make much sense.
So Boba's disappeared. Fennec's sort of become cornered, I guess you could say. All the stormtroopers are coming up
by herself. Yeah.
She is actually an excellent shot. She has a pretty big gun, like
dead shot, man. Dead
shot. So you see basically that once Mando has failed to break this force field, pun intended there, he's finally like, you know what, Grogu,
had to do that.
How about I just go and, I'm just going to protect you from up here, right? And then he doesn't do that. He runs straight back down the hill. And then the second he leaves Grogu after his third attempt, Grogu's fucking force field comes down.
Like straight away.
Just left vulnerable up on this rock.
Yeah.
Yet again, where I go, he goes. Yeah. Right out the fucking window. Not happy with that. Made that very
prominent in the first season, didn't they? Yeah.
This whole season, he's just absolutely not giving a fuck about that. Huh?
Yeah.
Oofs.
Yeah.
So he joins. He has a pretty epic scene. He goes in and basically saves. Kind
of like a Ned. He pretty much he uses his armor like Ned Kelly would, right?
Very Ned Kelly,
right? The old Australian bushranger.
He flies. Yeah, well, he doesn't fly down. He joins her in battle. He's basically taken all of the bullets from all of the surrounding. The front of the fire.
Basically
the bulk of the fire. And meanwhile, they're having this conversation like mid-battle, as if there's not like 50,000 bullets flying at them. Like,
yeah. Well,
it's a bit of a pickle.
It's all right.
Like,
it's all right.
We'll be
all good though because it's a sick-looking battle scene, right? Yeah. So we're not going to pick that apart. Even we might want to.
Even though there's about, for instance, we'll say there's probably about 30 bullets per 2 or 3 seconds.
And he has a lot of holes in his armor too. It's okay though because
a lot of holes in the armor.
I love Beskar. I love the show. It's cool. We're looking past it. Boba comes out in his revealing armor, though.
Yeah, so this is probably the defining scene of the whole show because Boba comes back in, it's a slightly different design, but he's got his armor back. He somehow managed to have time to go back to the Razor Crest, reprocure his armor, gear up. It doesn't look like it fits.
Yeah, a little bit. The classic after ISO.
Yeah.
You got your gut kind of coming out a bit. It's not exactly what we expected.
Mr. Incredible trying to put on his old uniform. So Boba's design, I mean, this is, as I said, like it's Boba Fett. Like we finally get to see him in all of his badassery.
Yeah.
You know, he's a little older, but like the design is slightly different than the original design. I think they purposely kind of do that kind of thing. Like they were never going to get it perfectly.
And he doesn't have his bottom half anymore, right?
Yeah.
So and he doesn't have, what is it, khaki?
He's wearing like fucking cargo pants and some
right.
Meh.
So it does look kind of different.
I kind of like this. It kind of looks like a skirt, like a black and like what Maul has, like when you have Darth Maul with the
nice like dark robe.
Dark robe kind of
cool.
almost. I want to say dress, but like kilt almost, but like in a more cool. Right?
I'm a sucker for having everything the same, which you should obviously try to change things, and evolve them. But I'm always just like, but I liked it better the first time. So yeah, I'm kind of like, it doesn't look like Boba Fett as much as what I wanted it to, but. Yeah. It's cool.
I think the Star Wars fans will be divided about that, as they always are, because there's always going to be arguments like, well, fucking Ahsoka's
wasn't meant to be long enough.
And then they'll be like, well, you know, Boba's fucking armor wasn't perfect.
Plus, you got to sell figurines at the end of the day, right?
That's Star Wars' MO. Sell figurines, sell toys. So we have to have a slightly different design so we're not selling the exact same Boba Fett toy to everyone.
And now we enter Boba Fett just... effing people up, right?
Throwing down.
Oh,
this is what we've been wanting to see. Like, finally watching Boba be a badass, what he was always intended to be, I guess, that we kind of never really got.
Yeah, as we were saying before.
Fucking 40 years.
Yeah.
I think people have been hoping for this.
Yeah, I mean, it looked awesome. Kind of almost had this little, like, punch thing where he hit this, like, stormtrooper right in the chest. He went flying back.
Like
almost looked like a little combustion going on there, little fucking
maybe like
pyrotechnics. I don't know,
something.
Almost like an Iron Man kind of thing.
Yeah, very Iron Man-esque, I think.
Which was awesome. Had like this little like knee missile thing come out, and it's just all the gadgets, right?
All the gadgets. He's fanging down all these like across the shoulder shots.
And let us not forget the over the shoulder, look away, shot of that stormtrooper at the end. That was sick. Yeah,
epic.
Here I am. So to finish this off, though, right? I mean, stormtroopers.
Yeah, they all
run away.
They all
the old,
retreat, and they
tail between their legs. You got the two shuttle ships coming up into orbit, and Boba's
they're leaving
done.
The atmosphere. Like they're flying off over the horizon, and Boba's like, nah.
Boba's not done.
Yeah. He has plans for these guys.
Yeah.
And what it is that supposedly, I don't know how this happened, but because we've seen this rocket being fired before when...
Many times, actually, yeah.
What's his name? Timothy Oliphant's character used this rocket
one.
where he kind of like bends down and shoots this missile off the back of the
Cool.
jetpack.
We finally see that.
He uses the same thing. He flicks down the little, what's it called? Aimer detector thing and fires this missile and knocks the two ships out of the sky. It's a great shot.
One crashes into the other one, which explodes.
It's kind of cool.
Kind of have like almost a slow-mo of Boba with like the ship exploding in the background. I was like, once again, maybe a little bit much, but hey, a little bit of tragedy, right? Strikes. I mean, not the tragedy that you're thinking exactly, but
maybe that is the tragedy.
Maybe that's
the episode's named Tragedy because the fucking Razor Crest, the ship that Mando's been flying in the entire show, gets dunked on from this
exploded. Actually,
basically from
terminology. Yeah.
It gets fucked up.
Yeah.
It sucks. It's heartbreaking. You can see Mando obviously is very... it'd be like what happens when Han Solo, if the
Millennium,
the Millennium Falcon got blown up.
We're even a little bit attached to the ship now. We've had it for a season and a half.
Yeah.
And,
it's almost part of the show. Like there's so many sequences that go down in the cockpit of that ship.
Yeah.
It's almost like a character in itself.
I do wonder what's going to happen from here with that. So coming after that, immediately you got my boy Gideon up in his...
So we see that where this shot has been fired from is a giant Imperial starship that's sitting up just outside of the horizon, I guess. Like
the atmosphere,
up in the atmosphere. He shot the Razor Crest, basically one shot, bang, it's gone. And then he sends down these new Dark Troopers that were sort of hinted to at the end of the last episode.
Yeah, No, the
episode before, maybe?
Before, I think it was. At the very end. Yeah.
Your thoughts on this?
Okay, so... Yeah, obviously now we have these Dark Troopers coming down from that Star Destroyer from the sky, obviously, and they come straight down. Obviously, they're flying, and they end up landing on this hill, right around where Baby Yoda is, right, or Grogu, right?
It's Baby Yoda. Give us fucking whatever it is. 15 episodes of the show as Baby Yoda. We knew it wasn't Yoda as a baby, but just there was no name for it.
And it was kind of like when they called the child was what they called it, and I was like, it's Baby Yoda.
Yeah, it's Baby Yoda, right?
So
we can all agree it's Baby Yoda.
Look,
I was calling it Yodi for the whole time.
Once again, this is where this kind of plot device takes place again, right? And I know we're going to harp on it, but the jetpack, right? And let us know in the comments what you think about it. Maybe we've overlooked a certain side of it, but
I don't think we have, to be honest.
The reason why Mando couldn't make it up there in time, which, by the way, I'm trying to think of what Boba was doing.
Can you imagine walking up a
Boba
fucking
had his
hill that's all like rock and plants and shit in armor as well?
True.
As if like that's an
Even
easy
how heavy
track.
it is, right?
Yeah.
Okay, we're getting off track. But that's obviously why he could not get to Baby Yoda in time, right? Which is kind of weird too. These dark troopers they come down really fast and they're meant to be all ominous and dark and all that kind of stuff, right? But then they kind of start walking very, very slowly towards.
They actually land Iron Man-esque too. The whole like.
Yeah, and that's what I was obviously going to segment towards, which is that they just seemed very much, to me, didn't feel like a Star Wars kind of a droid. They seemed very like robotic as well. Which,
I mean, they are robots, but we've seen droids like before.
Way more nimble and agile. In the last episode alone, The Jedi, we see those assassin droids, or I forgot what they're called. I think they're assassin droids. And they're very, very nimble.
Scaling walls and like jumping up and like
all
doing
that.
flips
and
stuff.
These are like these robots, like, and they just reminded me too much of like the Iron Legion, between the Iron Legion and even like Bionicles.
Yeah, it was. The design of the helmet is very Bionicle-esque.
It's weird.
For anyone who collected those back
Iron
in the day.
Giant, maybe? I don't know.
How dare you?
Didn't like that.
As you said, they're like as you said, like the Iron Legion, which is like a reference to Avengers: Age of Ultron.
I should say
Tony Stark's, like his program to run
bodyguards.
these like drone versions of the Iron Man armor to kind of police and protect certain situations before the Avengers can get there. I would almost say they're more like the Ultron bots with like the red eyes and stuff. Like
all that.
There was just like 4 Ultron bots that were painted black.
And I don't know what it is that you look at something, you go, that's like looks like a Star Wars droid, right? But for some reason, I was just like, they didn't look like droids from Star Wars to me. They just looked a bit out of place. Also, like a lot of things in this episode.
Dark troopers in the middle of the day. They just, as you said, lose the ominous feeling. Like they're meant to be this big deal. I don't know. So it's the setting itself, and like, as you know, as we're kind of dunking on the scene a little bit, the sequence reminded me of the Nazgul from Lord of the Rings, closing in and approaching the hobbits as they're all sort of cornered before Aragorn comes in with the flaming torch or whatever it is. The flaming sword, is it?
Yeah, flaming sword. Yeah, or maybe.
So it was kind of like that, but except for Mando didn't get up there in time because he didn't have his jet. Yeah. So we have this really a sad scene. It's a pretty sad scene. You see is Mando at the bottom? Yeah, Mando's now finally got there. He's too late. They're flying up to the Star Destroyer. They've taken Grogu.
Has like this. I think it is a zoom in, by the way. I think he zooms in with his scopes onto Baby Yoda, and Baby Yoda's looking down. And it's all cutesy and it's getting taken, and that is obviously, of course, the tragedy of the episode. That takes us to the conclusion, pretty much, in which we have
lost his baby.
Yeah, so we're getting to that point where the hero is pushed down.
The Dark Troopers return to the ship, and Moff Gideon basically,
going to hyperspace, right?
Yeah, he pretty much makes the jump to hyperspace. And right before that, though, you see Boba follow these Dark Troopers up and out into the atmosphere, and makes a point of saying like, "Oh, they're back! Like the Empire is back," and they were sort of saying like, "How is that possible? Like they should all be." Forming in the outer rim or whatever. Like there shouldn't be any remnants of them left.
It almost bestows the narrative of this new order coming in as well. Like the show is now becoming a part of that bridge between.
I really don't like
the trilogies.
It's bothering me that you would spend all these millions of dollars on this highly budgeted, great TV show that's supposed to be its own contained story, and now we're branching it out into let's fill in plot holes from series, and try and like expand a little bit on. The next trilogy, which obviously is no one's favorite Star Wars.
Yeah, but still, look, I still enjoy that it's a part of it in its own way. I mean, I like that the Empire's in it, so I'm fine with that. So moving on.
Well, it's the new, what do they call it?
The New Order, technically. But this is technically still the old Empire, right? I don't know what Moff Gideon's meant to be a part of, but I think he is still technically the old Empire, but there has to be a transitional part here. So we're just speculating. So now we have the ending, of course, with we'll go to
Mando's back to his ship.
We'll go to Mando back in his ship.
He's what's left of his ship's a fucking crater at the moment.
Oops, though, right?
So what's left of the ship that he's digging around in the remnants? before obviously Boba lands the ship again, and him and what's her face again? Fennec come and find him to.
I'll remember that again. Yeah.
I just can't remember that fucking name, dude. Fennec. It's just I keep thinking anything except that. I keep thinking Krennic, like from Rogue One. I just can't, it's the only name that comes to my head. I'm like, it rhymes with Krennic. Yeah, something like that. And so he finds in this rubble, I suppose, the ball that him and Baby Yoda were, bonding over with this little metal joystick or whatever you want to call it from the fucking from the ship control panel or whatever. Yeah, lever. Yeah, and he pretty much. And then he finds the spear as well from the last episode. The
spear, which makes sense.
Now,
but of course, yeah.
I theorized that because Mando doesn't wield, it hasn't been part of his character to wield hand-to-hand like combat weapons, and it just so happens that someone who he's potentially teaming up with, Boba, is wielding a long spear-like hand-to-hand weapon. So it is likely that potentially Mando gives this spear to Boba.
It's not a bad prediction, actually. Yeah,
it just seems like that's what they're going to do. Otherwise, either one of these two are going to wield it, I imagine, in the future against Moff Gideon. As we see, he has the dark saber. It's likely that they're going to confront each other, obviously, later on in the show.
And then that pushes us also to maybe because now they are ending the episode pretty much assembling this team, kind of in a way, right? You've got again.
So we have Boba say to Mando, like, "Hey, like, you give the armor to me, and we make sure that the child sees no harm. And obviously, the child has been taken, so it looks like we're going to be helping you out as our end of the bargain until the baby is safely returned to you." So basically, teaming up, and then they so they jettison off in the what do we call it again? What's the ship? Something one.
Slave one. Yeah.
Slave one. But so they jet off this planet to Slave One. Thank you. Fucking finger guns going there. Back to
I think it is Tatooine.
It's still Tatooine.
I think it's Tatooine. So that's pretty much the end.
And as you said, like
of the Mando.
It's going to be likely. Maybe this next episode is going to be them assembling some sort of task force
team.
Right?
Yeah,
kind of
maybe
like
Ahsoka
as well. Like they have a sort of like a team of like just different individuals, ragtag rebels team that are all going to try and get together and formulate a way to capture or re-engage with Moff Gideon and hopefully rescue the child before he does any nefarious things to him. And also, as well, we had the final sequence too. Baby Yoda's on the ship toying with these...
That's so cool.
Yeah, he's woken up and he's like just toying with these...
He's just mucking around. He's just having a good time.
Yeah, but the stormtroopers playing just bouncing with his toys against walls, like fucking pinball machining them across the room and shit.
Literally, the big bad wolf comes in and Moff Gideon, he's just like, what?
He's kind of like, you know what, I'll let this play out.
Yeah.
The kid's going to tire out.
He gets a bit of a kick out of it, right?
Well, he sees that once Grogu uses the Force enough, it tires him out, and then he kind of reveals the Darksaber again, saying like, "Oh, you want to play with this? Well, you might not be old enough to do that." Even though we've seen 4-year-olds in the Jedi Temple are training using the.
We're going to bring up the 4-year-olds in the Jedi Temple, though.
Well, they're all dead, right?
Yeah.
So,
don't know how that happened, though.
We know that if Grogu was training there, then he's actually technically trained with a lightsaber before, probably more than Moff Gideon has actually. So
I keep forgetting the age that Grogu was meant to be, like
50 plus years old.
It's a weird thing of how that works. We tried to do the maths once. It's kind of weird. All right, we'll wrap up our final thoughts on the episode, right? It's
good, but it's not great. And what probably doesn't make it great is A, there's a huge plot hole, which we pointed out with the jetpack, which was shit. B, I think it's a lot to do with the directing itself. It's not necessarily about the story or anything that's playing out, how the plot of this episode kind of plays out scene for scene. It is just kind of a lot to do with how these scenes are shot. It feels, as we've kind of pointed out before, very fan film-esque, very like on ground, on location, the lighting, the way everything's framed. It's not awful, right? Exactly. They make do with what they have, but it does feel kind of cosplay-esque.
You could almost separate a few things there. Do you know what I mean? Like you have pretty much the storyline, which is okay in the way that we have Boba Fett. I mean, that's awesome. We got some really awesome, like cool things that have happened in this episode, but just the storyline itself, apart from for me being a bit predictable, and obviously having those kind of plot holes in it, and we said plot devices, things that obviously put in there almost in a lazy way to make sure that, you know, he couldn't then chase after him because he for some reason left his jetpack and all those kind of things. Apart from those small things, you can a lot of people can probably get over, and the fact that it was just shot very differently to all their other episodes,
and
which is
coming
weird.
off of episode 5 too, as I said, which is like a masterpiece. It's a piece of art, and then you got this episode that feels, as I said, like just so like chalk and cheese. It's just so different. Yeah, it's not awful. Like it's a good episode. It as you said, it's a reintroduction of a fan favorite character, and I'm sure a lot of people think this was very long overdue to have Boba actually truly appear in the canon again as like a badass, and they nailed that. They nailed that
So
part of
sick.
it.
I mean,
It's
it was Boba's episode.
They just kind of did some stuff in the episode where you're thinking like, was there really any point in sending the 2 legions of stormtroopers down when they were both obviously Mando had taken his pack off. They were all sort of just having this kind of weird standoff argument. You could have just, sent these dark troopers down, grabbed Baby Yoda out of the force
and that
field,
was it.
and whoop, just whipped back up. Right?
Did Mando need to try to penetrate that force field 3 times to try to grab Grogu?
Yeah, probably not.
Probably,
right? You
probably
should
after
have
the
learned your
first
lesson
time.
after the first one. The second time, he actually gets knocked out. It's
Knocked out, and then he gets up and tries straight away again.
You're in this invulnerable armor, yet you get knocked back like 10 feet, and then suddenly you're like unconscious under this helmet. Like, okay.
Yeah. Anyway, feel free to disagree with us and let us know in the comments, because we really do want to know what you guys think.
Send us some feedback, give us some questions, and we want to thank Doodle again.